Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7. Today we're going over the Atari 2600. This video might be a little long due to Atari's long and interesting history, so I'll try to have a shorter version available. So if you've seen my previous videos, then you know my first experience with video games was with my uncle's Atari 2600. It was a wood grain variant. Now there were several wood grain variants available, including the Heavy Sixer, the Light Sixer, the 4-switch, and of course the Sears version, known as the Sears Telegames. Now there were two others that were also well known. One was an all-black model based on the original wood grain, and that was known as the Vader model. And then there was also a re-release later on in the Atari 2600's life, known as the Atari 2600 Junior, and that had a much more modern, sleeker look to it, including an all-black design with a brushed metal nameplate. Now this was the first console I ever owned, and it was the first major purchase I made with my own money as well. And so that model has, probably the most meaning to me, other than, of course, the one my uncle owned. The Atari 2600 was released in 1977 at a retail price of $199. That's $860 in today's money. Contained an MOS 6507 CPU, which was a variant of the processors used in other computer systems and video game consoles of the time, especially the 6502 and the 6510, which were featured in the NES, the Apple II, Commodore 64, and other computer and gaming systems. It initially shipped with 2 joystick controllers and the game Combat. It also had a long lifespan, beginning in 1977 and ending in 1992. It utilizes game cartridges and launched with about 9 games. Atari's founders, Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, were concerned about a single game system not getting enough interest, so they got Atari's engineers to work on a multi-game system. Their previous home console, Pong, was successful, but it was a one-time purchase. It was costly to make and costly for families to purchase. By releasing a system that had interchangeable cartridges, it allowed Atari to not only save on production costs, but also allowed for additional revenue sources by way of new game releases. This also allowed gamers and families to buy additional games at their leisure and at a reduced cost. Buy the console and get a game now, and then later on all you need to do is buy more games. It's basically a win-win for both sides. Now, Atari was afraid of competitors copying their idea of using cartridges, so they tried to get suppliers to deny sales to the competition, but that didn't go over too well. And unfortunately for Atari, a company by the name of Fairchild Semiconductor released a Fairchild Channel F, a console utilizing cartridges, in 1976, beating Atari to the market. Bushnell was looking to speed up development, but needed the funds to do so. He considered going public, but instead sold to Time Warner. Using the $100 million influx of cash, they were able to complete the project. While it sold around 400,000 units in its first year, it wasn't an immediate success. The next couple of years were rough, with funding issues, loss of several developers, and the eventual departure of Nolan Bushnell. It also faced competition from Mattel with its Intellivision and Magnavox with the Odyssey, both also capable of playing cartridges. What really made it popular, though, was the release of Space Invaders. This helped sales rise to 2 million by 1980, and by 1982, 10 million consoles had been sold. However, it should be noted that Space Invaders was not the most popular game on the system. That title goes to Pac Man, despite the fact that 2600 port of the game was considered one of the worst out there. However, with over 7 million copies sold, it was the most popular Atari 2600 game through its lifespan. Back in 2008, a programmer by the name of Dennis Debro released a homebrew version of Pac Man to try and get it to be as close as possible to the original arcade version. There'll be a link in the description below if you want to read more about it. Seeing the success that Atari was having, third-party game developers started to flock to the system, including their competitors Mattel and Coleco, releasing versions of games available on their respective systems for the Atari 2600. They realized the potential for a new revenue stream. However, the flood of bad games, including some from Atari themselves, contributed to public disappointment and the eventual death of the home video game market. Take E.T. for example. What a horrible game, seriously. Now initially it was actually critically acclaimed, but that didn't last very long. They only sold about 1.5 million copies out of about 3.5–4 million, so they had a lot left over, of which they ended up burying in the landfill. Another contributing factor to public disappointment was the fact that the box covers and the box art, while beautiful, in no way, shape, or form represented what the actual game looked like or was even about. Anyway, all of these and other factors led to the eventual video game crash of 1983. Basically, the US home video game market was dead. That is, until Nintendo released the NES in 1985. I actually did a couple of videos on the NES a while back. I'll put the links below. Time Warner was desperate to sell Atari and ended up selling to Commodore's Jack Tramiel. He was more focused on home computers, which were gaining in popularity, and this effectively killed off the Atari 2600 as well as other projects they were working on. However, due to the reinvigorated home video game market thanks to Nintendo, Atari re-released the Atari 2600 in the form of the Atari 2600 Junior. At $50, which is around $125 today, it was a much more affordable option than the NES, which retailed for around $180, which is about $480 in today's money. This basically restarted the success Atari had experienced years prior. Now, during the early lifespan of the 2600, Atari had also developed and released the Atari 5200, which was a much more powerful console, but it was not a sales hit. They also initially released the 7800 in 1984 for about $140, which was $350 today, and it was compatible with just about every 2600 game out there. But since the market was in decline, they scrapped the rest and kept them in the warehouse. Once they saw how popular the NES was, and along with the fact that the 2600 was seeing a sales resurgence, they re-released the 7800 for about $80, which is about $187 today. It was fairly profitable for them. However, in 1992, Atari announced that all 8-bit systems would be discontinued, including the 2600, the 7800, and their 8-bit line of computers. Yes, that's right, Atari made home computers, but we won't discuss those today. Okay, enough boring facts. Let's open one up. So if you saw my September pickups video, you'll know that the console was pretty dirty, and I didn't even want to take it out of the bag. So the first thing I had to do was clean it. Got some pictures of the before and after. I didn't take any video, because I figured you guys would not want to sit there and watch me scrubbing plastic all day. I also took some photos of the main motherboard, as well as a daughter board that contains all of the switches, including the power switch. After cleaning, I noticed that there were some scratches, probably from normal wear and tear, which is to be expected. However, the wood grain finish seems to be either painted on or silk-screened on, and there's going to be no real easy way to do it. I'm not a really good painter, so I'm probably just going to end up using contact paper. I know, not the most elegant solution, but it is what it is, and it's probably going to be a lot better than what I can do with a paintbrush. On top of that, there's also the orange trim that goes around the switches. It was also kind of faded away in some spots, so I just ended up scrubbing it off. Of course, now it didn't look right, so I went online to try to see if anyone had any solutions for this, and they did. Someone found an orange paint pen that was almost an exact match for the same color orange that they originally used. So I bought one of those and repainted the trim. This is what it looks like. Okay, so got the Atari 2600 mostly cleaned up. I say mostly because there's some strange residue or oily substance or something right here. Or it's supposed to be this shiny, and this part here is really dull. I'm not sure what it is. I've tried different cleaning agents, methods. I couldn't do anything with it, so it is what it is. Clean enough for me. I mean, this system is really old, so not really too concerned. The inside here, the bottom of the chassis, which is really thick and hefty, had a lot of just something spilled like right here. I don't know what it was, and it looks like it had been there for a really long time, so that was fun cleaning out. But overall, it's looking really good. The various components, so we'll attempt to put this together. It's been a while since I took it apart. Although I am missing the coax cable, so I have to go grab that. I will be right back. Alright, sorry about that. Sometimes hard cuts are just needed. I'll try to make the transition a little better. Now, I've got to try to remember how the heck I took this whole thing apart, because I really don't remember. Pretty sure that this part goes in first. This is an RF shield for the actual console. This right here is the actual console minus the buttons, the switches, and the RF modulator. But this here is the board. I have some pictures of it, but I didn't take this apart initially because it was just filthy. But this is what it looks like on the inside. This is the Atari 2600 for all intents and purposes. Really, really small. And this, of course, then is the switchboard along with the RF modulator. But this basically goes inside of this shield. I got screws in the way for now, so I can't get it to fit completely in, but I'm going to, and I did that just so I don't lose them. But it basically goes in like that. This covers it up. Then this goes in, it attaches with the ribbon cable, and there's not much to it. In fact, as you've seen in other videos, I'll probably end up fast forwarding through this part here because it's going to be long and boring. But some of you may want to stop at points and see what I'm doing, so that's why I include it. In the event that this video ends up going super long, like some other of my videos did, I'll try to make a shorter version of it as well. Now this is the part that I'm going to have trouble with, is remembering where all the screws go. I know that these screws here hold this in place. I just don't remember if I need to attach these two screws or if those get taken care of by the case, but I don't think they do. This goes in like that, so there are two screw holes here, so these middle screws, yes. So these down here should be taken care of either by these screws or these here. I believe these are the ones that I have to use. You know, they might not be because this washer is going to short out against this solder joint. I'll have to go back and look at my notes and see how I disassembled everything. Kind of just winging this whole YouTube thing at this point, let's be honest. Just like everyone else out there. This will ultimately go on like that. It's possible that the ones with the washers go here just because, but I'm not sure. But I do know that there are two screws that hold that in place. So let's just grab a couple of these screws and see. Machine screws, because they're, yeah, so the machine screws are the ones that are going to go in here, and I believe that one's shorter. Let me take the two shortest ones, and those will go in here. That makes sense. Oh yeah, that fits much more easily. And half of this is basically held in place now. Now you'll notice there's a hole here, and inside there is a potentiometer that you can adjust from either side. Don't know what that specific one does. I'll leave a note or something on screen. If I find out, it may not be documented, who knows. Cause it to short out. Oh, you know what? No, these are grounding planes. So that's how it grounds. But let me just verify just to be safe. It's been a few weeks since I took this apart. I've had other projects that I've been working on. One thing you may see about different YouTubers is that they usually have multiple projects going on at once. So, yeah, so it looks like this just goes on like that. In fact, if you look at the solder joints there, there's almost like cuts in them I don't know if that's from the force from screwing this down, or if these are still kind of hot and in a semi-molten state, so when they put the shield cover back on, it just cut into it. But that looks like it's normal, so I'm not going to worry about that. So this is how it actually goes. There are no screws in these two center holes. They go there's here, 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 here. These two are left empty. These go with the washer, go underneath. But it seems like I'm missing two screws still. And I know I didn't lose them anywhere because I put everything together. So, yeah. Is that a problem? Probably not. As long as everything is held together. Of course, I'll get this whole thing put back together, and I'll end up finding them. Just watch. Put this back in here. This will go on top as such. The other thing that confused me when I took this all apart are these foam pads. I mean, I know they go over the switches, but I've got 8 of them, and it doesn't make, like, a couple of them get shortchanged. Maybe they go, maybe because of the fact that these slide, they only got a single one because they already have some resistance to them. No, because then that leaves me with whatever. Good enough. Now, before I completely secure this, let me grab the coax cable. Coax cable in the Atari came kind of built in. For whatever reason, they decided to put the connection inside instead of outside. Another popular mod to do is to basically just take a short coax cable, put an actual separate jack here, and then plug this into that, so it's easier from a maintenance standpoint. So now, all that's left to do is to take these, and I can do this at the end, but I'd rather do it now just to secure it in. I know as soon as I get this whole thing together, I'm going to find 2 extra screws that are missing.
And it's entirely possible that that's just how it came, and I don't know. I didn't put the grommet back on for coax, but I don't think that's a problem because I can just put it on now. Good enough. Now I'm going to put this back in. Actually, before I put that back in place, let's test this guy out. Definitely smells like paint. Gonna take up, it's almost bleeding through. There we go. Perfect. Technically, I mean, all you're doing is just drawing a line around the edge here. Just be careful not to push too hard. You don't want any paint to bleed over any areas that it shouldn't go on. Not too bad if I say so myself, considering this is the first time I've ever done something like that. I painted before, but usually giant walls and ceilings and things like that, never something so intricate. Alright, well, this pen's never going to get used again. So be it. It's actually not too big of a deal if I got any around here, because it'll be covered up by this part of the bezel anyway. And yes, I'm going to put it on while it's wet, because I don't care. Okay, I care a little. But I don't want to have to stop this video and then re-record it again. I mean, it's kind of in place now. Maybe it doesn't completely snap in. Maybe this is it. Yeah, it looks like that's actually it. It doesn't actually snap in too much. Well, alrighty then. Line it up here, because there we go. Aha. Going to have to, I think, although I don't know why. We'll just do that here. Good enough. It'd be so much easier if I didn't paint it, or if I waited for it to dry. But, you know, like I said, I'm impatient, so that's that. Not bad. This really bums me out, but I'll take that. So now all that needs to be done is to put screws back in, and that's it. I'll put a couple of them in now to hold it together. This is going to be a long video. I'm going to have to do the whole fast forward thing. You might not even hear most of my commentary. Just a shame because allegedly I like to hear myself talk, so. Which would lend credence that I would want others to hear me talk. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a super social person unless I actually know you, but hey, whatever, okay. There. Now we've got 2 longer screws and 2 shorter screws. These shorter ones go up top for sure, and the 2 longer ones have to go underneath. Now there are also some holes on the bottom of this console that kind of look like they would be screw holes, but not. I'm not sure why, but it's these 2 and then this one here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a mostly restored Atari 2600. I still have the controllers to clean up, the cartridges to clean up. Some of the controllers have to be repaired. The rubber covers that go over the handles, the joystick part, some of them came loose, and that's kind of a known thing. It's not that big of a deal to fix. I have to do that. I still have to try to find a set of paddles. I found a broken set of paddles on eBay. I'm going to try to find another broken set on eBay to try and make a matching set. I went to one retro store that says they usually have them in stock, but this time they didn't for some reason other than a giant box of broken ones. If push comes to shove, I'll go and see if I can buy one of these broken ones, and like I said, I'll just marry the 2 together and go from there. But that's it for this. I will, like I said, I will have more footage of maybe repairing a controller, and then the next time you see this, it should be hopefully working, because I still have yet to test this. So, on to the next section.
I also use the same orange paint pen on the controllers because that little circle guide thing that goes around the joystick area, not sure what it's called, so sorry. If anyone knows, leave a comment. But I ended up using the paint pen to recolor that as well because that was also kind of faded and scratched. I actually took some footage of that, as well as the disassembly of the controller to give it a little bit of a cleaning, and here that is. So a little bit more information before we actually show off the finalized console. There are some mods available to help improve the picture quality. Now you see by default the Atari 2600 only outputs RF. However, there are mods available that will allow you to be able to output in Composite as well as RGB. Now these mods require some good soldering skills, and if you don't have that, you could probably find someone to do it for you. There's a lot of places online that will perform these mods for you, but they're not cheap, and they require you to send your console to them. However, Hyperkin makes an Atari 2600 compatible clone console. If you saw my NES video, you remember I mentioned that they made a clone console for the NES. Well, for the Atari, they have the RetroN 77. Note, they do not sponsor this video or channel. This is just part of my own research that I am conveying to you so you know what options are available. At around $70, it's probably a much more cost-effective solution if you want to play it on your modern television. Compatibility isn't too bad, though there are a few games that just don't work right. I don't have the list of compatible and incompatible games at the moment, but I'll make sure I leave a link in the description below so you can take a look. However, for purists, nothing will be as good as the original console, so I guess you'll just have to mod it if you're one of those. I guess it just depends on whether you want the absolute best picture quality while retaining full compatibility with your original console, or you just want something you could pick up once in a while and play a quick game or two. And here's the mostly restored console. Again, here's the orange trim that I repainted, and as you can see, I applied the contact paper to the wood grain finish. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an exact match. This was the closest I could get. It seems like no one ever has anything that I actually need in the area. Wonder why retail's dying, right? Anyway, I can always try to find a closer match later. It doesn't stick permanently to the console, which is nice. Now, I did say mostly restored, because in the bottom right corner you'll notice that the Atari logo isn't there. Now, I did buy a silver paint pen to try to recreate it, but as I mentioned before, I'm not very good at painting, so what I tried to do is print the logo off the internet and cut it out to make a stencil. But no matter what I tried, I couldn't get the lines clean enough, so I just stopped. Maybe I can try to find some sort of metallic colored stickers online, or maybe I'll give the stencil option another go at it, we'll see. If I do, I'll make sure to do a follow-up video. And as mentioned earlier, I also restored a couple of the joysticks, as well as cleaned all the games. However, some games are going to need to be relabeled. Now, I plan on doing a video sometime in the future about making new labels, box art, etc. I know it's kind of a controversial subject since some people want to keep everything original even if it's damaged, whereas other people want it to look good for their collection. Either way, I think it'll be a fun little project to do, so keep an eye out for that video. If you want to be notified, please subscribe and then hit the little bell icon so you get notified of future videos. Here's another controller that I decided not to refurbish or anything, and you can see where some of the orange paint is still left but the rest had faded. Well, here's the repainted controller compared to the old one, and as stated earlier in the video, the orange is almost an exact match for the original. Pretty cool, huh? I will leave a link in the description below to the forum post where I initially found out about the orange paint pen. So that's it for today. What did you think? Leave a comment below about the video or even just your favorite Atari 2600 memories. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you want. But if you didn't like the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs down. But please leave a comment below as to what you didn't like about it so I can try to make improvements in the future. Thanks all, and I'll catch you later.